How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm finally going to review the Azov Iceberg. I've been meaning to, I haven't wanting to for quite a while, but I know what I'm like. The more I enjoy a vehicle, inevitably, the longer it takes to get the footage, but we've made it. Yeah, so we'll have a look at the engines. KZGT, which I like them engines, one of the best in the game. They go very well with this. It's probably a tuned version of that as well, S Plus on the power. The gearboxes, I thought maybe the default would be faster than the off-road, but I believe the off-road is faster. It's got 7 gears, it's pretty nice. It's got the high range, the low ranges, and it's yeah, it's a nice gearbox. Suspension, you got the active, the stock, and the raised. Fox CRF 450 Rider, the guy who made this mod, he did say something the other day. It's when my phone was dying and I couldn't reply, but he said something about leaving it at, like, when I put active suspension on, I forget to raise it, so he's made it so it raises it. It was on the twice twins there. Tyres, I'm going for the chained because I like them anyway, but you can see it says heavy single chained. He's put extra weight in the tyres so that it keeps the weight very low on the truck, which is very nice. I'm going for that winch, which is the strongest, but you can see it actually gives you the lengths and like the power ratings of the winch, which I appreciate because that's pretty cool to see, like, more stats and stuff. Snorkel wise, you got some pretty good tool options. I'm going for those two, like, that sit on the back in the middle, because then when you're driving deeper into water, your nose is going first. Those snorkels sit like in the middle at the highest point, which is quite nice. These are all the various add-ons. I believe he's done a version of the fuel add-on that has got less weight, because it appears to be the same thing. There was 2,000 more fuel as well, but it rose up off the floor a bit. There's 2 lots of roof racks. To be honest, I left them off at first, but I ended up putting on. You'll see later. And yeah, you can also get a high and a low saddle, which is pretty cool, because I can't even remember if you can get a high saddle on the original, but you certainly can't get a low. All these, there was like rear fenders, some visor, which I'm going to leave off. Not that it's really an issue, but I just thought it gives me more viewing room. These lights I thought were pretty cool, because you can attach like the fog lights on the front, the fog lights on the top of the front, and the bar of fog light. You can have all of them, and a bumper that's got fog lights. As you can see, it doesn't really matter if you add the front bumper on. It's got such like a big long chin the way it is anyway, that it's not really, by the time you're hitting that bumper on the floor, you're already face planting. What was that? Miscellaneous. Oh, I probably put some horns on it. The exhaust, I appreciate this, because again, I would probably choose the stock to keep it out of the way and sprays it out to the side, but if you don't choose any, he's just cut the exhaust off, so it'll come out the bottom or whatever, just somewhere where it's like not in your way. Which again, I appreciate. Like, the guy, he obviously knows the game, and if you know what I mean, and just things that are good ideas. The tyres, 2 lots of rims, pretty normal. I've just left the normal ones on. The colours, white with the red stripe looks pretty cool. Well, the black looks very nice. The grey, the white, there's the only white with the red stripe. That looks nice as well. The red, I like that as well. The blue, that one, don't dislike, but not my favourite. I like that. The black with the orange stripe, and that again, not my favourite, but I don't dislike it. I think I ended up leaving it red for most of this. I was going to mix and match, but I kind of forgot. Yeah, looks-wise, looks very nice. I think it looks cool with the chain, particularly that it's the Azov Iceberg. Well, it was the Antarctic, so yeah, you'd think it'd be suited for ice. No view out the rear, but you've got super wank bed, so that's pretty good. The mirror, I can see the garage, so that's something. I can see my tyres in that mirror. When I look out the back, I can see my tyres, and I can see the edge of that garage door, so it's enough. I should be able to see my trailer. The horn, it's yeah, it's sound. It's like it's sound. It's not ridiculously loud, or like, it's not as good as the P16, but it's not a horrible horn or anything. The revs build up very nicely and quickly to about 2,600 RPM. I was flying through that a little bit quick because I've kind of done it in the original Antarctic review, so we just want to get to the motoring. As you can see, picks up speed very nicely. No issue of like tipping though. Some trucks as you drift out of there can tip. This one was firmly planted. I'm just flicking through the trailers quickly. I believe you can have every single trailer. Obviously you've got this high and low saddle, so they're all covered, and everything you can tow as well. So I believe it was every single option. Funny enough, it's the same guy that makes the trailer mod I've got on, like the big trailer pack, that also makes this Azov Iceberg. Like I think it's Fox CRF 450 Rider, I believe. I apologise if I've got like the sort of order of it all mixed up, but yeah, they're the ones, and they are very good mods. The twice twin steer, this thing, the trailer pack. There's a Paystar version as well, and a Western Star version, which I need to get around to trying them. I have actually tried them a little bit, it just didn't make it into the video because I ended up doing something that was quite a long video, etc. Anyway, back to this. It's ticking along. I could have probably gone up there in auto, but I usually stick them in high. Cutting over this kind of boggy area, yeah, absolutely no issues. Staying in high, flying along there. Just nicely, and that's what I enjoy about this truck, first things first, is kind of like, there is elements of it that's overpowered, but it's not as overpowered as you think, and I get why he's balanced it that way. It allows you to just enjoy certain aspects of the game that little to no other trucks kind of allow you to do. Going along here, normally when I do these reviews, most of them can't get into their top gear. That was in 7th out of 7th going down there, which is just nice. Well, we'll get to it in a minute. Nailed that tree. I was getting some good old speed down there. I was like, whatever I hit is surely going to die. But it went better than that through there. Nailed another 2, and then that. They're invincible trees. We got stuck in the V. But, I mean, let's be honest. In some kind of way, I think we're all just trying to get stuck in the V. Spiritually, metaphorically, literally, in many cases. But it's where we'd all like to end up one day. Yeah, doing that though, I kind of nailed the engine, and that's where I was saying I left the roof racks off because in normal tests I don't put the roof racks on at the minute, but this thing motors along just fine, roof racks or not. So yeah, I went back, got the roof racks, and came back. It's only fair. I didn't really mean to delete it on those invincible trees, but what did it nail? 1, 2, 3. I think it nailed 6 trees, 2 big fat juicy trees as well, which is always good. So yeah, it's a tree killing machine, which is nice to know. Gets a tick for that one. The rock test, kind of bordering on redundant. It's got 72-inch tyres, so it gets, I mean, every now and then you'll see the odd one, but for the most part, I was even trying to go in auto to get faster, that's why I'm kind of drifting around a little bit. Yeah, just to give it more chance of like trying to cause damage. I mean, long story short, you're going to be motoring over rocks all day long. You might see the odd one, but it ain't going to be an issue. Funnily enough, as I'm driving off there, there's a tiny little rock on the road. I took 1 damage, so there you go. Anti-terrorist barricade, bam. You always take damage off them, but this thing didn't move, budge or anything. Would not want to have been that anti-terrorist barricade. It was not successful. I was actually pretty impressed through here, even though I knew this thing was a beast anyway. A lot of things just automatically go slow through there. This actually managed to stay in high and cut through that first bit. Now, I changed it down to high-low anyway. I think it could have stayed in high, but you get like a grip bonus in this game, I believe, for going in the low ranges. And the low ranges is a better option. And I agree with that. I get what they're trying to do. Like, if you're in high gear and your wheel's spinning too much, you need to lower the gears down. And so, yeah, I don't think that's a bad mechanic of the game. But, yeah, I dropped it into a high-low and got out of there, no problem. So, next up is the, like, jumping over the barrier test. Goes, obviously, through here in high. I knew it would. Just let go of it a bit, because I'd normally go over there in auto, but the thing practically walked over before I had a chance. But again, I mean, it's got very tall tyres, it was always going to do well. Now there, I did attach a winch, but I didn't hoover it in at all, so I don't 100% know. I mean, pretty much every truck does flip there anyway, so I'd say it was pretty good. I'm not sure if I'd attached that winch if I would have fell over or not. Went to about the steepest part I could, like the tallest part of that barrier, and yeah, it got over no issues, so stuff like that is not really a problem. Climbing up here was no issue. I'm in auto, not only that, I then stuck it in high just to see. But the other thing is, if you think, oh, it's too OP, it's like, you can choose, there is some weaker engines to it, etc, etc. You can choose, you know, various tyres and all that, so it's one of them where you've still got a range of setups you can do. But I like, what the guy was explaining, and it climbs up here and gets down there, no issue, was that you almost like, it's pretty hard if not impossible to have a truck kind of balanced all the way through the range. If it's good at the lower end, it's going to feel overpowered at the top end, but if you want it to feel good at the top, just good at the top end, it's going to be underpowered at the bottom end. And I kind of get what he's saying. Jumping over this wall, I can get the front over and everything, but there's like a big sort of knuckle where the articulation joins, and it's like this on the normal truck. So what you want to do, stick a winch to that tree and hoover yourself in so you're like, your back end is sticking up higher than your front end. Arse over tit, to put it another way. And then while you're still attached to your winch, do a winch from the back of your truck to a tree that's right in front of you and start hoovering it in. And then it'll lift your back end high enough But you can get that kind of knuckles section over the wall, and then we're good to go. Now we're, yeah, we'll go for a little tree chest and ram our way through here.
The mother rhino is giving birth.
That's alright, don't adjust your phones. That just happened. Yeah, it was a bit of a violent birth, I'll be honest, but we got there in the end. The taller the vehicle is, the more branches it catches on, so it's at a disadvantage, but we, yeah, kept ramming it, of course, that's what she said, and we made it out of there for a little trip in the mountains. Yeah, next up is the cargo, and again, I thought there's no point in just bringing cargo. This thing is going to haul cargo like it's not even there, so I tried to give it a bit more of a challenge. This is the turning test, did very well, in line with all the other trucks, like the much smaller trucks though. If not like a tiny little bit better, certainly good enough. Like if it can turn around with room to spare in there, then there's no issues. It's also got a slightly bigger trailer, so I would have brought the 8 slot, but it makes that turning test kind of irrelevant because you have to go wide enough just to turn the bloody trailer around. Yeah, still motoring along here as well. Gets 7th out of 7th gear, which it gets up there very comfortably. That's definitely what she said. Yeah, whereas like a lot of trucks, even though they've got, say, if they've got 8 gears, often the highest they're going to get into is like 5th or 6th. It's only when you like going flat out down a road. This thing can get up into 7th fairly easily. I flew round there in auto, then I dropped it in high as I was going over there, and then when I started getting to like that branch sticking out the floor, went into high-low. I mean, considering I've got a much heavier trailer than just, say, like a sideboard semi with 5 lots of cargo in there, yeah, this thing walked through there with little to no issue. Again, it's nice with the steering. It's got a bit of articulation, but it's also steers, like the front wheels steer, and it's got rear steer, so it is very nice. Driving it along here, I can say from someone who has parked about 70 trailers on it. Unfortunately, I'm on my modded playthrough, so all the trailers are not on this one. But I'm pulling this trailer now through the snow at the edge, and I can assure you, yeah, not many trucks, if any, really do that. It's pretty tough snow there. I'd certainly say that'd be classed as like super snow. And I just dumped the trailer there to it. I forgot to take it back later. Well, I clipped that corner there. It was my fault, but unsurprisingly it motored through here with no issues. I mean, this thing is a beast. There's no two ways about it. But like I said, it doesn't feel overpowered, and it's not too fast. It's the thing that I like about it is that rather than overpowered, it feels like the gearbox makes sense and works within the game and works with the truck and works with the engine and works how you would want it to work. Yes, it does have a lot of power, and I do consider it, if it was a real life situation, I would consider it somebody has bought a vehicle like this and purposely spent extra money on it to make it an ultimate off-roading beast. There is people that have done stuff like that in real life, etc. I do agree it's not some like standard issue real life vehicle as is now that you'd buy off the shelf, but I don't think it's beyond the realm of what could be made. And it's like I said, even if for like those of you that enjoy, you know, that you're looking forward to hard mode, or you like going a lot slower than I do, I get that. I knew I'd probably clip my chin there, but it has got a bit of a big chin on it. Yeah, it's like, even if you don't like mods in the sense of you don't want the game to be easy, it's like, I'd still recommend getting this just to give it a go for like, to explore that end of the mechanics of the game. You don't have to go and do missions with it, or anything like that, but when you just, you know, have your mad 5 minutes, get this thing out, and go and roam the places that you want to check out, but you don't have to, like, you might want to check out a mountain range, but you don't actually want to spend half an hour crawling up that mountain just to see what's up there. It's like, this is the sort of thing you can just, yeah, go and have a little look around and mess around. I don't complete many missions with this because, for the most part, it's a little bit sort of easy. Going over that rock bridge was no problem. There's a twin stair I rolled ages ago. Just kind of flipped that casually on my way past. Yeah, for the most part, like, it's easy in the sense of, like, you're not going to get stuck, but again, it makes it a nice drive. I did one of those logging missions where I went from Black River to Drummond Island, and it was just a nice drive with this thing. Like, I already know I can get from Black River to Drummond Island, so I don't need to take a truck that's just going to slowly crawl its way there. Like, I've been there, done that, and I don't need that little bit of challenge anymore. And this just, then, instead of me focusing on that, I just enjoyed the drive itself, and it's, yeah, it was good. I mean, going across snow along here, it was just fine. It's tall, though. I couldn't get under that bit, which is normally the one I go through. I had to do this the other day with the Kolob or something I was testing. And it's a bit iffy. You can kind of bounce off the floor and smash yourself to pieces, but this, thankfully, certainly jiggled me around a bit. But I got out of there and it cut across there with, yeah, like it was practically nothing. And we're away. We made it. So, next up, the old Devil's Mud test, which I had a pretty good feeling about. So it was doing alright going into the shallow bit at the edge, and I'm still in high as well. So we'll start moving it over to the deeper stuff. And right now, I reckon it would have held its revs in high, but again, I think there is some kind of grip advantage to dropping it down. I didn't edit there, it's a glitch, I apologise. Funnily enough, I normally would edit that little bit out, but this was probably one of the only trucks that was quick enough that I wouldn't have needed to edit it. And then the game glitched that bit out perfectly. So yeah, typical. Even this snow here is usually a bit slower until you get to like that branch next to me. But this thing kind of, yeah, it's got enough grip that the super snow is about a realistic level now, I would say. And again, that's what I mean with the overpowered situation. It doesn't feel overpowered through snow. It just can maintain 10 or 15 miles an hour through 4 inches of snow, which shouldn't be too much to expect from a purpose-built off-roader. Like, this game is a bit over the top with its snow. The nose test, it was never going to do great because it's got a big fat schnoz on it, but it's also got enough power that I could kind of just keep flooring it and sort of just scrape my nose up the other side of the hills, and yeah, kind of made it there eventually. Same kind of situation happens now. And that's one nice thing, other than having, like, I'm glad he didn't just fully lock the articulation and just stick to, like, wheel steering, because when you get into situations like that, you can actually wiggle your whole chassis then, which I like. It's just another thing that's like trying to wiggle your way out of a bit of a tough spot is nice to have that advantage. I went to go and tip it here. I was genuinely quite impressed. I think I hit it about as good as you're going to get because the wheels were near enough floating off the floor, but as you can see, because it's the chain tyres are weighted very low, yeah, that is pretty impressive how much, well, you can see I had to winch to those trees in the end just to kind of pull it over. And it rolled, you can see how comfortably it landed back on its wheels. There's no way it was carrying on. I will just say, and it's not to knock that at all, but the bigger, taller vehicles tend to have an easier time with that little hill test because they're just big enough that they do one roll by the time they get to the bottom. The smaller trucks usually have done like 1 1/4 by the time they get to the bottom. However, it's still clearly demonstrated once it landed back on its wheels, it was planted. There's plenty of stuff that would have took that same... The Antarctic in this identical situation, I think, would have carried on following itself over and onto its side. It even got up here in a high range, which I was pretty happy with. Not a lot, if anything else. Caught its nose up there, though, typical. Gets up the hill in high. But again, I mean, it is what it is. It's like the truck, unless you physically change the truck, it's always going to have that nose. It was doing well this far. I did well not to tip there. But in the end, I did tip. And she's gone. Took this tree out. See, when you hit the invincible ones, like, you kind of phase through them a bit. Cheating. Possibly that tree I might have been kind of hooked on that a bit. It might have helped, but regardless, I got back to my wheels. I'll consider that a win. As you can see though, drop the hammer, stick it in high, climbs up the hill. Again, it's like, but it's not feeling rapid like it's ridiculous horsepower. It's more like it's just geared very well where, yeah, it can apply its horsepower to comfortably climb a hill, which is kind of what I think would be the case in real life, certainly if you're spending the money to get this kind of equipment. Long story short, it's got a very good long winch on it, but it's also an autonomous winch, so even if you flip blah blah blah, you can get yourself out of trouble, which is nice. Next up, the quarry test, and because I'm on my second playthrough, I've not got the garage built on Zimnigor, so we're entering from the other end. That's definitely what she said. And as you can see, I brought the sideboard semi-trailer with me, but I've also got the ramped flatbed. Of course, I've got a horse with us, I always do at the quarry. Yeah, the reason why is, well, this is my second playthrough, and I've not got a load of trailers already in the quarry, so I'm bringing some with me. Yeah, I personally would always prefer the sideboard semi-trailer over the ramped flatbed, so for doing this test climbing up the quarry hills, I would have brought the sideboard semi-trailer, but as we know from when I've used the ramped flatbed, it gets hooked over, like, the edges of the hills. So I kind of thought I'll bring both trailers, because I wanted to test, like, is there any difference? Normally I would disconnect the loaf, obviously, but I'm bringing this flatbed with me. But again, it's still motored up to 7th gear, so I'd have been happy if it just motored along in high range down there, but even the auto gears could handle it. So yeah, that was my plan, to kind of sort of try out both. I didn't necessarily know if I'd leave all of each footage in or whatever. I mean, climbing down here, it's no issues. Going through this muddy bit at the bottom, it's pretty comfortable and hassle-free. And I'm going to cut ahead now, because I'm basically going to disconnect the ramp flatbed, get me loaf in place just to be safe, fill the ramp flatbed with cargo, and as well, just to throw out there, I couldn't get my saddle back under the trailer. I'm not blaming this Azov Iceberg, because normally you wouldn't even be allowed to have a saddle low, and you wouldn't even be allowed to have the trailer. That's what I did, stuck a winch to me into the middle of the trailer, and it just kind of scooted it over the top of me. Yeah, like I say, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because I'd rather be allowed a sideboard for that to even happen than, like, the other alternative is just remove the saddle low and then we don't even get the trailers that are a bit awkward to get back on. But I'm just throwing it out there, like, bear it in mind if you do take a trailer. This thing sits pretty high. Yeah, so I filled both up, and then while I was here, I was like, well, I don't know, now I kind of want to see if it can actually pull both up here, because I'm pretty damn confident it'd bring, like, the sideboard trailer, semi-trailer, with no issues. The ramped flatbed, I wasn't sure if it'd get hooked, like I said, on the first hill sort of ridge about now, but it appears to not even have really slowed me down or anything. Didn't quite make the corner there, but if you just turn your steering the other way, I went to go to reverse, but you don't need to, it kind of rolls you back just enough that... Yeah, I made the corner, and as you can see, I mean, it did very well. It brought the sideboard semi-trailer full of concrete and the ramped flatbed. And I thought, sod it, go big or go home, stick it in high gear. I thought, if it goes wrong, I can always have another go at this hill with the in high-low. And it was close, that was pretty close to, like, stalling there, but... yeah, did extremely well. It's one of the very few times I didn't even need a loaf in his little loaf hole to help me up or anything, and like I said, it's got double the trailers, so it's clearly an absolute hauling machine. There's no doubt about that. And like I said, sometimes, yeah, I want an absolute hauling machine. I want to take a route on a map and just enjoy the journey rather than fighting through mud every 2 minutes, because again, I've played this game for hundreds and hundreds, if not 1,000 hours. It's like I've done my fair share of time crawling through the mud at 5 miles an hour. I've experienced that. Sometimes it's nice to just, yeah, enjoy the little road trip. Gets up that last hill with no issues, so pretty good. Ticks all around. Lake carved for the ice test. I just left this in because I was pretty happy with the way it they break out on that fence. And we're away. Even this snow here is often like super snow that slows you right down, but this thing at least maintains like a decent enough speed, more than most, if not all, of the things. Yeah, for the ice test, to be honest, I certainly expected it to be heavy enough to punch through the ice. I do believe, though, they have done some kind of adjustment to the ice. They've made it a little bit more slushy. Nonetheless, though, this is still very good. I've drove around in this ice since I believe they've updated its characteristics a bit, and I've still got trucks stuck in this ice, so... But, you know, that's not to say, oh, well, it's only getting out because of that. It possibly could have got out, like, how the ice used to be, but yeah, I'm just sure it feels like there's a bit more substance once you actually punch through the ice. Probably almost behaves probably a little bit more like mud under there rather than just... But before, it almost just sinked through like you're in water, but then those solid bricks of ice just... Yeah, they'd lock you in place and there was nothing to really grip onto or anything. Like I said, it's heavy enough to punch through the ice, but another nice thing with the articulation is you can wiggle it side to side and kind of break the ice, give a bit of room for your tyres. And it did make it back out there. I reckon 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, you'd probably get out. I'm sure there is a way you could get it stuck in the ice. There probably is with just about everything, but it doesn't just special. But then while I was here, I have been in a P16 or a Club, I believe. There's very few things can jump into this section though, and like they're tall enough not to take damage. But yeah, this thing was motoring on, like looks like little dog ears sticking out of the water. So yeah, it wasn't long until I thought, anyway, while I'm here, where is that battleship on this game? I was looking over there, I was like, nah, that's the port boat that's just sat there. And then could just see the top of it over in the distance. So I thought, right, we'll see. Can we make it? And yeah, long story short, it was able to drive. This is probably just about as deep as they made this whole water section, so this thing near enough. I don't think it took any damage on its way. So yeah, it was a bit of a close-up look at the battleship you don't normally get to have a look at, and of course, it didn't take long till I thought, I know I'd love to see this. I was far too keen, racing down like pack trucks, like when your mum's talking to you and you're like, yeah, alright, yeah, bye mum. Yes, we're off. It's going to have some type of magical adventure. Oh my god. It did not go well. I respect it though, the loaf, his last wish was to make sure the iceberg didn't flip, and he had an autonomous winch. He was good. I mean, look at him go. Imagine if you've seen that flying through the water. If you were like an international drug dealer and you've seen that flying at you, you'd be like, oh no. Hope he's here to buy cocaine in bulk, otherwise we're in big trouble. And yeah, while I was here, I was looking around the boat, and then I just randomly thought, I wonder if I could climb up onto this piece of land. Wasn't looking likely, if I'm honest, but you don't know unless you try. It was like, yep, fighting a bit. I'm kind of steering backwards and forwards. I don't know if it's the case on this game. They called it something like dynamic grip on MudRunner, where as you're steering you get a little grip bonus, just so it encourages you to kind of wiggle your tyres left and right if you're in some boggy mud or whatever. This might be the same, I don't know, but I'm doing it anyway. It feels good. So these chunks of ice are sort of in the way a little bit. They're kind of bumping on me, catching me, stealing a bit of my grip. And yeah, it took a little bit of fighting, but again, it's a pretty impressive slope considering the size of the Azov's nose as well. And yeah, we got there. Yay! I earned myself a little look at the this side of it. I think I've earned myself a thumbnail on that one. I mean, that's why I had to bring the loaf. Couldn't leave him out of the opportunity. He needs to be here and experience it. So anyway, next up is Drownlands. No, not Drownlands. I always call it Drownlands. Flooded foothills. Going through this river, I even went through the deeper section. Normally I'd go like further to the right a bit and cut across. But again, this thing's plenty tall enough. There's also a lot of bigger rocks through that section. You can see them when I kind of look directly down. But again, there was no real issues. Got through there. I'll skip ahead a little bit, but I was kind of driving through the actual main fat section of the river, which is not too bad. Going into like right in the middle of where all 3 river sections kind of meet. But yeah, it's this sort of last bit from about now to that big rock where I've drove through before. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't the dolphin. I did drive the dolphin through somewhere there. But yeah, something anyway. I started drowning at that point. And while I was there, I thought, oh, I wonder if I could climb up there. I cut a little bit out. I reversed. I give it another, like, a better approach where I could actually get my tyres kind of on the rock first rather than the nose. And it was close. Rock grip on this game has always been a little bit hit and miss, but considering the weight of the truck, that was a little tiny glitch there, but we made it. Got a little victory horn off. Yeah, top speed on the runway. This is basically it. 7th out of 7. Like I say, you're not going to get. It's not going to Jeff special by whacking it into high. It flew off there. It's like jammy sod. Just caught its nose at the perfect like bit right at the bottom edge of the cliff and sort of flicked itself straight. Which, yeah, again, I mean, it's weighted very low, so it gets, say, like 75% of the credit for that jump off there. There was definitely some luck involved to land it, like, just clip the nose perfectly like that. But what it probably would do is kind of face plant, stop dead, and then sit back down on its wheels. So going for like a snorkel test in general, I mean everything's usually drowned long ago, but obviously because this thing does sit so tall, we're yeah, we're going way deeper. That's definitely what she said. Finally it starts drowning, so I thought, sod it, I might as well drop the hammer and see if we can actually make it across here before the engine dies, but the engine died. Of course now I was like, wow, if only I had a loaf. So, 3 loaves later. We're gonna, yeah, well, I've always got to do me jump off the cliff and see what happens. You never know. You never know unless you try. Got a nice long winch length on this one, so yeah, the loaf at the back is going to be joining a little bit late. So we go. Top load disconnect. The other load comes firing over. I mean, look at him. He landed perfectly on his wheels, but the old physics situation didn't kick in. You might think, well, they are tipped, but you always got to check when you got yourself a loaf. Took oh, his engine's gone. BC. He's always got repairs on him. So we get him fixed up. Will he start? Of course he'll start. When doesn't he start? And to be honest, I could start using my winch, but the fact that it was letting my wheels actually turn, I wanted to try it. And I did cut about 15 odd seconds out there. I tried eventually, well eventually, like I reversed a bit and then I decided, nah, I want to drive forward. So that's why I just cut that bit out. See, drive forward, steer into it, and he eventually just kind of tips himself back to his wheels. And that is, in a nutshell, just why I would like, right at the start of the game, when you rolled, you could still steer your steering, and then like a month or 2 into the game, they just removed that feature, and it was, yeah. Every now and then, it just, for some reason, it remains, and it's good. That little orange loaf, he had an autonomous winch, so he could rescue himself anyway. I reloaded the game because I wanted to be back at the top because I wanted a loaf on top of the Antarctic, but just to prove that the loaf could escape that same situation within seconds with a winch. That was that. And then of course he's got to get his mate out. Yeah, I wanted, instead of getting a crane down here to put another loaf back on top of the Antarctic, I just thought if I quit and reload I might start back at the top of the cliffs. But yeah, loaf got everyone rescued. I brought another Azov Iceberg with the bandit crane. I kind of purposely swerved off to the side there, so even though I did nosedive, I then landed on my side. Like I said, if I went straight off the cliff, I reckon you would face plant and then land back on your wheels most of the time. Yeah, so I thought, well, while I'm here, we'll see. Could I rescue this thing? And I know it's pretty heavy. I know it was going to be a bit of a juicy one. Doesn't help when I drive forward and crash into a rock. But this is basically what I would try and do. Obviously, what I could do now is just wedge it behind the red Azov Iceberg and it'd flip it no problem, but I was trying at first, you know, not to use anything like just other than the loaf. This is what I would do though, is pull the back end round. That was a glitch, not an edit, but it did just pull it round to where it was a better angle, and then I tried to flick it on its own. I caught a few rocks on the floor but not quite long enough. I got it tipped up a bit, not all the way, so I just cut out about, I don't know, 30-40 seconds. Yeah, I drove around, I've done it before, kind of hooked my back end on these little cliff bits. Started to slip out, so I'll drop the hammer. Yeah, beastly horse engine in action. And yeah, took a bit of going, but we got there in the end. The loaf never lets you down. Next up though, so crossing the river. This is like in the part where I normally try and cross, if anything, like where I drove right into the water earlier, was kind of like, I knew it goes a lot deeper there, so to make it fair with the other ones, I was bringing some loafs along. Even the rear loaf, his little snorkel's still staying out of the water so far. But yeah, it's like Jesus' loaf, walking on water. You might say it doesn't count because he's got an Azov Iceberg under him, but how do you know Jesus didn't? As far as like loaf shoes go, these are pretty damn good. Like created in Area 51 or something. Wasn't quite liking it up there in high range. In theory, if you could get a bit of a run up, I think it'd go, but you catch your nose and run out of speed, and yeah. High-low though, climbs up there like nothing. Did me horn, killed that tree, couldn't handle it. And usually it's my little prize when I get up here, I just ramp off this cliff. Because I can. Splat. You see, now you'll be looking like, well, yellow loaf, he made it, but that other loaf, he's definitely not making it. But you see, that's the thing with a loaf, you always got to have a closer look, because just when you think he ain't making it, he's making it. I mean, of course he starts, like I said, if you don't start, you ain't turning the key hard enough. And I could drive out of here on my own, but I'm sticking a loaf on that winch. I'm getting a little assisted boost out of there. I mean, again, as usual, inevitably the video turns into a loaf commercial, but seriously, get yourself a loaf. It's a goddamn horse of a vehicle. And yeah, a quick drive up this mountain, to be honest, when I was getting this footage, I was like, this isn't really going to teach us much at this point. I was pretty damn confident it was going to fly up here. But again, I like messing around. Like I said, at the start of tonight, I was kind of like, well, I reckon I could probably even get a 25, maybe a 30-minute video, and in theory, it could be possible, but I do get sidetracked and stuff. Things happen, inevitably. Whereas on the other side of the coin, videos like doing the derry, I want to get done as soon as possible, and there is no messing around. But the thing was so terrible, the video takes longer because it's just slower everywhere. So, made it to the top there, posed for a little photo, but I'll probably use the battleship thumbnail. I'll try and kill this tree that was my enemy. He's on the list. He's down, went for his mate, kind of got caught on it weird, nearly tipped, stuck a winch out. I don't know what the hell happened there, but we killed the tree, the second tree. Then we went for another, stuck in some more invincible trees, and that was that. So yeah, I mean, that's about everything tested. Long story short, yeah, get yourself an Azov Iceberg. It's an extremely good vehicle, feels well balanced. Like I said, the guy who's built it clearly has played the game a hell of a lot. He just knows the nuances of the game and how to counter them, and like I said, it's one of those trucks where you can explore kind of the top end characteristics of the game without, there's some vehicles, some mods that even though they can physically go fast enough, they're not weighted right and they don't handle right and all the rest of it. They can sort of auto Jeff Special, which is funny but a bit risky and all the rest of it. This is just, yeah, it feels properly professionally made and polished, and it's just a very good truck. One of the few that I would probably trust on my original playthrough. That's one of the only mods I use, is the trailer pack. It was about 100, call it 200 grand fully upgraded, 137 grand I believe stock, which yeah, that's fair, like for how good it is, that's decent. It's about the same money as say the Derry, which I mean blows that out of the water for fun. Yeah, it said King of the Cold in the description. I'd say it's earned that title. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I've got to say. It's got a lot of nice attachments, got roof racks, which are pretty cool. I think they add up to a loaf's worth of roof racks, which if I was to be asked how much would you add, I would probably say a loaf's worth. That would be my answer. So yeah, all round it's just a very good truck and worth trying. And then I think this is just the last bit. I was like, just trying another flip. How do you flip an Azov over? Loaf's like judo flip. See? The Azov thought he had me, but a loaf. The loaf's on it. So we fired it up, look at it, engine stalled. It was like, what? Speak to me, loaf. Don't do this to me, game. Because I've got the advanced winch. And to be honest, I could just switch to the Antarctic, but you do. Switch back to the loaf, it has a little jiggle. You twist that key even harder, and he fires up like a gun. Yeah, I've got an autonomous winch basically on the Iceberg, so I could have flipped him regardless, but I'm just saying, the loaf can get himself out of situations. And he's away. So I went for a rescue on this again. I just wanted to see if I could do it without hooking behind the rocks. I went behind it and winched this way. It was only because, yeah, I wanted it to articulate that way. But I think it's now gone back to this way. But that's what I was trying. I was just mentioning, like, that's doable. So I was pulling the back end round a bit more to where I'd want to be, because over, like, in front of me now, there's a few more rocks and things that are a bit easier to hook onto. So, choose, it's got, yeah, that winch point, which is nice and wide on it, which is pretty cool. Drop the hammer, and that horsepower gets to work. Of course, there's 100% rescue record rate, still maintained. Yeah, that's about it for today, though. I hope you've enjoyed, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching, get yourself a loaf and an Iceberg. Thanks for Patreon members, and I'll be back soon.